Everybody just jumped back. They couldn't believe it.
Oh, I don't believe it.
We all felt like Michael Landon and Karen Grassle were meant to be together when Little House on the Prairie was on TV. As Charles and Caroline Ingalls, they lit up the screen, made us laugh, and let us escape to a good life on the wilderness. Behind those touching scenes, though, was an evil that no one could have planned for. Karen Grassle has been quiet for decades, and she finally spoke out now. It is shocking to hear that the actor who played Ma is finally telling her story. You won't believe what she went through behind the camera. Grassle is revealing the truth about her working relationship with Landon, from shocking abuse to unbearable tension on set. And it's not at all like the fairy tale on TV. What really took place on the Little House set? What did Michael Landon do that made Karen lose it? Don't leave until you hear the shocking truth about one of America's favorite TV shows. They didn't want you to see this side of Little House, but it's big in Hollywood. Karen Grassle played the Ingalls family on Little House on the Prairie for almost 10 years. She was the perfect example of a strong, kind pioneer woman who kept the family together. But Grassle's story began in Northern California a long time before she became famous as Caroline Ingalls. She was born in 1942 and moved to Ventura with her family when she was 5 years old. The light called to her even when she was a child. She went to a nearby dance school and quickly discovered that school shows were her true calling. From Ventura High School, where she graduated in 1959, she went to some of the best schools in the country to further her education. She first went to H. From 1959 to 1960, she went to Sophie Newcomb Memorial College, which is a coordinate college of Tulane University, before moving on to the University of California, Berkeley. In 1965, she got her B.A. in both English and theater art from that school. He didn't stop there, though. Because of how talented she was given a Fulbright fellowship to study at the famous London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. This was a turning point in her life. She got better in London and came back to the U.S. ready to take over the stage. Karen's first jobs as an actress were all in theater. During the summers, she went to the Stanford Contemporary Workshop and the Colorado Shakespeare Festival, where she played classical parts and leads that made her a real star. The Front Street Theater in Memphis, Tennessee, was her first paid job. After that, she went to New York City and became involved in the world of resident and stock theaters from all over the country. She did more than just perform on stage. Grassle has been on PBS and original productions, and she has had parts in 3 network soap shows. In 1968, she made her Broadway beau in The Gingham Dog, which was short but important. She then filled in for big names like Gloria Swanson and Rosemary Murphy in Butterflies Are Free on Broadway. In 1972, she shared the stage with Maureen O'Sullivan and Brandon DeWilde at Denver's Ilitch Theater. When DeWilde died soon after the last show, it ruined the whole production. One of Grassle's most famous stage roles was in Cymbeline at Shakespeare in the Park, where she shared the stage with Christopher Walken, Sam Waterston, and William Devane. There was no doubting how versatile she was, but her big break came in the strangest way. People who watched TV didn't know much about her when she tried out for the part of Caroline Ingalls, but that changed very quickly. Karen got the part, and it would be the most important part of her career. Little House on the Prairie began in 1974 and ran for 9 seasons that everyone will remember. Millions of people loved her because of how she played Ma. The Grassland was the center of Grassle's TV career, but she didn't stop there. After shooting the pilot for Little House, she had a guest role on Gunsmoke in an episode called The Wiving. She played a saloon girl who gets caught up in a plan to kidnap someone. After that, she was in movies like Harry's War, where she played Kathy opposite Edward Herrmann, and Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. Grassle also played in and co-wrote the NBC TV movie Battered, which was a scary drama about real problems women face. She also became a strong advocate outside of acting. She fought for the Equal Rights Amendment and government funding for shelters that help battered women. She fought for women's rights with all her might and never gave up. She had a lot of TV credits outside of the plains. Cocaine, One Man's Seduction, Crisis in Mid-Air, and Between the Darkness and the Dawn are some of the TV shows she was in. She was a guest star on TV shows like Hotel, Love Boat, and Murder, she wrote. You may have even seen her on old talk shows like Dinah, The Merv Griffin Show, and The Mike Douglas Show, bringing her love and charm to people during the day. Karen Grassle went back to theater after Prairie Days was over. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, she helped start the Resource Theater Company. Later, she joined the Actors Company at the famous Actors Theater of Louisville in Kentucky. She moved to the San Francisco Bay Area in 2006 and has been in shows at the Aurora Theater, the San Francisco Playhouse, and the Ride Down Mount Morgan Cabaret. She played the title part in Driving Miss Daisy productions all across the country, from Manitoba to Virginia. In 2008, she won the Outstanding Achievement Award for her role in Cabaret. She even became the face of Premier Bathrooms, a company that sells goods that make bathrooms easier for older people to use. This showed that she could be graceful and approachable in commercials too. Forget, which came out in 2021, was Karen's moving comeback to movies, a powerful story that tried to bring attention to Alzheimer's disease. She was in movies with famous people like Cloris Leachman, Louis Gossett Jr., Tatum O'Neal, Olympia Dukakis, and George Chakiris. Karen Grassle has been a force through it all. She is a professionally trained actress, a TV star, and a fierce supporter of women. Being successful isn't the only thing that her story is about. It's also about being strong, surviving, and having ability that will never go out of style. How did Karen Grassle get the part that made her famous? Karen Grassle was thrilled when she got the chance to try out for the part of Caroline Ingalls, who she respectfully calls Ma. She couldn't believe she might soon be on screen with Michael Landon, the dream guy who became famous for playing the charming Joe Cartwright on the hit TV show Bonanza. It was like a dream come true for Grassle, but that dream quickly turned into a nightmare behind the scenes that broke her heart and made her lose hope. After NBC decided to make The Little House on the Prairie a TV show, Michael Landon, who was also the show's chief producer, writer, and director, was in charge of all the casting. In his search for the right mother, 47 actresses tried out for the part of Caroline Ingalls. Hisha Parody was one of the best candidates, who would later play a different part on the show. But Landon picked Grassle in the end, because he thought she looked like a pioneer woman. Karen Grassle didn't have much experience in movies or TV at the time. She had a lot of experience in theater, and even went to college to get a degree in dramatic arts, but she didn't have many movie credits. That didn't seem to bother Landon, who was looking for actors with strong theater backgrounds and little Hollywood baggage. Catherine McGregor and Richard Bull are two of them. However, getting the right kids was the hardest part of the casting process. Landon did not want his girls to have stage mothers who were professionals. He wanted the truth. Melissa Sue Anderson was chosen to play Mary, and Melissa Gilbert was cast as Laura. On set, they were called Missy and Half Pint. And because of rules against child labor, Lindsay and Sydney Greenbush, who are identical twins, played the part of Little Carrie. The group looked wonderful, but those smiles from the plains didn't mean everything was as good as it seemed. What's going on between Michael Landon and Karen Grassle behind the scenes? On the TV show Little House on the Prairie, Michael Landon and Karen Grassle played the perfect pair, but their real-life relationship was very different. There were strains under the Frontier's warm charm, caused by pay disputes, power imbalances, and behavior that Grassle would later call degrading. In the beginning of the show, Grassle was thrilled to work with Landon. People already knew him from his long-running part as the sweet little Joe Cartwright on Bonanza. But what started out as exciting turned into something very scary very quickly. As Little House became more famous, Grassle felt that her work wasn't being properly acknowledged. She asked for a raise before the second season started, sure that she had earned it. But she later said that Landon had turned down the request, arguing that her role wasn't very well liked and that her pay should reflect that, comparing how much she was worth to the younger actors. The mood changed after this argument. Grassle said that Landon started cutting her out of important stories, acting like she didn't exist, and treating her like she was. She was picked on set. Insulting words and cold behavior made her less welcome. It was hard for her to keep up her dream part as Ma, putting a long shadow over a part that should have been a turning point in his career. But Grassle's tough time wasn't the only hard time going on behind the scenes. The period-correct outfits looked real, but they were very hard to film in. The women in the group were wrapped in layers. They wore tights, petticoats, boots, and long dresses with eye hooks up the back while they filmed in the hot California sun. The show was shot in Simi Valley, where it was often warmer than 80 degrees, and in the summer, over 100 degrees. When Allison Arngrim talked about her first day on set, the temperature was over 100 degrees. She played the deliciously evil Nellie Oleson. And that doesn't even include the bright lights that were used to shoot. She felt dizzy almost right away because she hadn't eaten breakfast. She remembered getting dizzy while setting up a scene, but she didn't say anything. She was scared that someone would think she wasn't strong enough to do the job. As the day went on, she got so weak that she spoke like she was in a hospital bed at times. She had trouble seeing, and then everything went dark. She was revived on set by a doctor, and even though it was scary, she finished the day's shoot. She became one of the most famous TV bad guys of the time, but she wrote that the real bad guy was the heat and the heavy clothing. On the other hand, Michael Landon wasn't just playing. He also wrote, produced, and directed a lot of Little House. From his time on Bonanza, he brought over ideas and even whole plays. It was strange how some episodes of Little House had a lot in common with older episodes of Bonanza. The plots, dialogue, and even camera views were all the same. An episode of Bonanza from 1970 called A Matter of Circumstance was one of the most striking examples. In it, little Joe is kicked by a horse and then left alone at home to try to cut off his own hand to avoid getting an infection. He passes out before he can finish, though. In A Matter of Faith, which aired on Little House 6 years later, Caroline hurts her leg while she's home alone and almost cuts it off herself before passing out. B.W. wrote both shows, Sandifer and directed by William Claxton, but that wasn't the only thing they had in common. The Little House story, Someone Please Love Me, was based on the Bonanza episode A Dream to Dream. The sad Little House story was based on him when he was only 7 years old. He was only 12 at the time. These artistic overlaps may have saved time in the writing room, but they also showed how Landon often reuses old material. It hurt so much that even the cast's hair hurt. The big curls on Nellie Oleson's head were first Allison Arngrim's own hair. Every night she slept with her hair in curlers, and she got to work as early as 4:30 a.m. to deal with the curling irons that were needed to make her look perfect. The costume department finally made her a wig that fit perfectly, but the process was painful in its own way. The wig was held in place with a metal comb and dozens of bobby pins so it would stay in place during long shoot days and the occasional fight on set. Arngrim wrote that it never felt cozy. When things were really bad, the pins dug into her head and sometimes left little cuts. She would find little bits of blood on her fingers when she rubbed her head. The hairdresser on set would then rush over and clean her wounds with sea breeze astringent before shooting resumed. It's possible that the Ingalls family had a hard time on screen, with bad crops, hunger, and harsh winters. But Ed Friendly, one of the show's original directors, said that behind the scenes they were living a little too well. Friendly and Landon co-created the show. Friendly later told People magazine that the production had become too different from Laura Ingalls Wilder's books. He said that the Ingalls family had been tamed and made more appealing for the network. One change that made him unhappy was that the kids now wore shoes. Friendly thought that Landon didn't want them to be the poorest kids in town, which took away from the point of showing how hard life was on the frontier. Another network executive supposedly didn't want the family to live in a sod house because he thought it would be too sad. So the family was quickly moved to a frame house. Friendly got angry and said that he had given the show the name How Affluent Is My Prairie. He also joked that the Ingalls had everything but a Cadillac. Even though Friendly quit the show before it aired, it became a societal phenomenon even without him. Little House on the Prairie had a special magic for viewers. Even though it was very hot, had a lot of stress behind the scenes, and used old plots. But for the cast, especially Karen Grassle, it wasn't nearly as touching in real life as it seemed on TV. Life behind the camera was nothing like the easy joys of Walnut Grove. There were invisible injuries, blackouts caused by the heat, professional slights, and emotional wounds. Fans got to see a good family drama about love, strength, and frontier ideals. What they didn't see was the emotional, physical, and professional price that some artists paid in secret to make that dream come true. The trouble Karen Grassle had on set was not the only trouble she had off set. Karen Grassle drinks too much. By 2021, Karen Grassle had been a beloved figure in American TV history for decades. But when Caroline Ingalls' book, Bright Lights, Prairie Dust, Reflections on Life, Loss, and Love from Little House's Ma, came out, people quickly realized that there was a lot more to Caroline Ingalls than what they had thought. The book was very, very personal. It wasn't just a look at Little House on the Prairie from behind the scenes. It was a lifetime of hardship, heartache, and success. Since she was 13, Grassle had been writing in diaries to try to make sense of her life with an alcoholic father. Those early entries set the stage for a book that could handle everything, such as her own struggle with drug abuse. She wrote about how hard it was for her to get along with her co-star and boss, Michael Landon. Perhaps even more striking was how open she was about the problems she had to deal with behind closed doors after the cameras stopped running. Things changed in 1977. At first, it looked like it was a harmless moment. She planned a lunch for the cast and gave herself a glass of wine. That was the only time she ever drank at work. But when she got back to the set, she couldn't stop thinking about it. She went outside, rubbed water on her face, brushed her teeth, and lit up a cigarette. It didn't help. The wine kept coming back to her mind. She knew something wasn't right. She went to a feminist meeting a week later and was supposed to give a speech there. Due to nerves, she drank a little too much before the event. The speech went on and on. She felt ashamed. After that, she went to see an old friend who had just finished Alcoholics Anonymous. It was made clear by the friend. Karen was having trouble, and she couldn't say no for the first time. She tried to quit when she got home. She failed. One more night of being drunk. One more talk that went badly. More tears, please. Then the choice was made. Finally. Strong. She was going to never drink again. She got help. She didn't drink. Not long after that, her father, who had been an example of addiction to her, died of drinking. She didn't need to be told again. She knew that this disease caused death already. That's why she decided to live, sober and determined to get her voice back. But even as she got stronger while she was healing, she was about to face another silent fight. This time, it wasn't in a bottle. It happened on set. Karen Grassle finally talks about what Michael Landon did to her. Karen Grassle was not familiar with the set of the Little House on the Prairie pilot when she first walked on it. Having done a lot of theater, TV was still a strange new world for them. Michael Landon made her feel very welcome. From what she said, he was very kind and sensitive back then. He guided her carefully, helped her, and gave her room to find her feet. It felt like the start of something magical at first, but it didn't last. Grassle finally talked about what really happened behind the scenes, sharing a truth that many fans were shocked to learn. The show ended almost 40 years ago. People thought Charles and Caroline Ingalls were a happy country couple, but Grassle and Landon were anything but happy. She told the truth, which was that Landon could be very mean. Grassle wrote in her autobiography, Bright Lights, Prairie Dust, that the setting behind the scenes was much more dangerous than her fans ever thought. She told the story of the gross jokes Landon told the cast and crew. He made fun of how she looked and how she was acting, and when she asked for fair pay, he told her she didn't deserve more than the kid actors. After all, the show had only started in 1974. Even though it was getting more and more popular, Grassle was still paid between $2,000 and $4,000 a week. Landon told her no when she asked for a raise before the second season. He is said to have told her she wasn't as well known as she thought, and that should be reflected in her pay. Grassle said he felt insulted. She wasn't trying to make unreasonable claims because she was a co-star on a hit show. She just wanted to be fairly compensated. Things changed from that point on. She saw that her scenes were being cut and that she was becoming less important in the story. Landon started to ignore her and make fun of her behind her back when he wasn't being rude to her. He often made fun of her body and facial reactions in front of the crew. Grassle remembers being paralyzed and unable to face him directly. She thought she was frozen. They were used to it because she worked in TV in the 1970s and was used to being put down like this. Her mind never crossed that she should fight back hard. In the hopes that things would get better, she kept her head down, did her job, and played the good girl role. It didn't stop there, though. Landon's language on set could be very bad. Grassle remembered him using words like C and T and making bad jokes about women's bodies. She said that the worst parts were when they were alone together, in their romantic bedroom talks that fans loved. She loved filming the times when the couple would flirt quietly while talking about their current problems. But over time, those scenes got too much to bear. While they were lying in bed, Landon started making bad jokes, under hot lights and with a full male crew around them. Grassle gave a detailed account of what happened. She said she felt like she had no way out because she was stuck in that tiny bed in a dark room with guys standing all around her. It made me feel bad. Even though it was hard, they were able to get back together in the years after the show ended. Grassle thought about that. She talked about how thankful she was that their relationship ended on a better note before Landon died in 1991. Over the years, Assistant But Grassle's comments added a new layer to the story, and she wasn't the only one who didn't like him. In her autobiography, The Way I See It, a look back at my life on Little House, Melissa Sue Anderson, who played Mary Ingalls, also wrote from her own point of view. It was clear to her that Landon was a great dad from what she saw, but she also said that he was bossy at work. He was mean and would pick on certain people to tease them in public over and over again. She also said something very interesting about the last episode of the series, when Landon blew up the whole town of Walnut Grove. It wasn't just a shock finish. Anderson says that Landon's real goal was to get even. After the show was over, he didn't want anyone else to use the sets. People still love Little House on the Prairie, but the stories behind the show's making are much more difficult. One that was full of artistic genius, a lot of stress, quiet pain, and the price of keeping the peace at a time when speaking out wasn't always easy. Michael Landon's habit of being hard to work with. Many fans and even some cast members still love Michael Landon and remember him as a great actor, writer, director, and producer. But his legacy is much more difficult than his on-screen persona suggests. The people who worked with Landon behind the camera said he was hard to get along with, moody, and especially rude to women. Karen Grassle wasn't by herself when she finally spoke out. Despite shocking many, her story was similar to what other people had been going through in secret for years. It's likely that she won't be the last person to speak out. After Grassle's all-revealing book came out, another voice soon added to what Grassle had said. Allison Arngrim, who played the notoriously bad Nellie Olson, was honest about her relationship with Landon. What she said both supported Grassle's claims and added to them. While speaking at an event honoring Bob Hope and U.S. soldiers, Arngrim said Landon was more angry, bad, and dangerous to know than the good farmer he played. She said that he smoked, drank, told bad jokes, and liked a work culture that was like the male-dominated, whiskey-fueled vibe of Mad Men. She said that the set felt like an old boys' club, where jokes in the locker room were not only okay, but encouraged. Arngrim remembered that Landon had a Ferrari, smoked a lot, and didn't sleep much. He gave off the idea that he was completely filled with crazy creative energy. She said that his level of drive, 24/7 at full throttle, could easily wear other people down. It was tense on set, she said, but arguments were often left at the door of the dressing room, which she called a demilitarized zone, where cast members could calm down before going on set. Even though things were a mess, Arngrim said she liked Landon's crazy energy. As a teenager, she thought it was funny when he did crazy things. She didn't have any problems with him personally, and she thought he was a very strange, wonderful, and crazy man. She didn't think everyone liked him, but she thought he was never dull. Even the ways he was contradictory interested her. A man who played a poor country farmer on TV, but drove a Ferrari, got married 3 times, and didn't live a simple life. Even though Arngrim's story didn't match Grassle's pain, it supported the bigger picture. People loved the man they called Pa Ingalls, but he was complicated, flawed, and often careless with his power. Behind the scenes, he was so powerful that no one dared to question him.